quickly how matters had changed. When he were given to Rand Enterprises, he became paying attention to song on his iPod. He advised the peanut vendor the corporation belonged to him. However, the man didn't accept as true with him due to the fact he appeared like a random roadman. Danny walked into the constructing for the primary time in years and talked to the receptionist. He observed that June wasn't there anymore. He requested to satisfy Harold Mickerman, stated he became Danny Rand. Wendell Rand's son. The receptionist failed to accept as true with him and stated he could not meet Harold. Danny watched the video approximately his father's corporation. However, safety got here and threw him out. Wondering, he became just a few loopy homeless man. He requested them to name Meacham. However, they stated no. Danny attempted once more and this time used his preventing talents to ward off safety without hurting all of us. More guards got here. However, he were given into the elevator with a stolen key card. He reached the pinnacle ground and walked into Harold Meacham's workplace, wherein he noticed Ward. They had been burdened to look every different, and Danny stated hello to Joy. However, neither identified him. Ward known as Safety, and Danny stated once more he became Danny Rand and desired to look Harold. Ward and Joy stated the Rand-owned circle of relatives had died in a crash and that Harold had died from most cancers. Joy advised him to depart. Danny requested if they may want to speak greater at level deli. Wards were given indignant and almost fought him. Danny snapped for a second, however then calmed down and stated sorry. Ward warned him to depart. Security confirmed up with weapons and threw Danny out once more. Ward advised him to stay away. Danny went to his vintage residence, which now belonged to the Meachams. He discovered a carving from whilst he became a child. No one responded the door, so he climbed the constructing and were given inner. While searching round, he noticed a celebration image of Ward and Joy. He moved cautiously, however Joy's canine Toro observed him. Danny stayed calm and used his chai to settle the canine down, then locked it with inside the take a look at. He discovered an vintage image of himself with the Meachams from a vacation on the roof. He remembered whilst Ward blamed him for something he failed to do when Joy got here. Domestic. Danny left quietly without being visible. With nowhere to move and no cash, he slept in Central Park. A homeless guy named Big Al idea. Danny became much like him. Al provided to assist and searched Danny's call online. They discovered a piece of writing announcing Danny had died in an aircraft crash 15 years ago. Also noted Harold's huge funeral. He gave Danny recommendation on wherein to locate meals and footwear. Danny felt like he had someone on his aspect and fell asleep outside. Danny Rand went lower back to his vintage residence to persuade Joy he became really Danny. However, she nonetheless didn't agree with him, and known as protection he attempted sharing antique reminiscences to show it. Even stated sneaking in and seeing her canine Toro. However, that best made matters worse when protection confirmed up. Rand bumped into the road and had to use his chai to jump over a taxi to get away. Later he sat in Central Park to meditate and calm himself down. Colleen Wing noticed him and concept he became homeless, so she gave him a few cash. Curious, Rand began out speaking to her whilst she became placing up posters for her dojo. He attempted to present the cash returned, however she advised him to preserve it. He observed her advertisements and requested for a process, however she stated no, assuming he best desired to easy. Still determined, Rand discovered Ward Meacham and were given into his car. He would not forestall speaking, so Ward pulled a gun and stated they have been going to the law enforcement officials. Rand took the gun, conveniently pointed it at Ward for a second, then tossed it apart. Ward failed to agree with Rand, became who he stated he became, wondering Danny died in the crash. Rand added up early life reminiscences, however Ward mocked him. Angry, Rand sped the auto to scare him, nearly crashed and best stopped whilst Ward, subsequently known as him Danny Rand, apologized. However, Ward warned him matters were not completed. Back in Central Park, Rand shared a sandwich with Big Al and mentioned locating calls. Rand stated he became purported to shield Kunlun. However, Big Al advised him to simply experience lifestyles. Rand then visited Colleen Wing once more and presented to train Kung Fu to carry in greater college students. She stated no when she requested approximately count. Rand prevented the subject. Wing were given indignant, pointed a wood sword at him and advised him to go away. Rand joked it wasn't sharp, however Wing reminded him it may nonetheless harm. He remembered his education, apologized and walked away. She nonetheless gave him footwear outside. Shannon from Rand Enterprises attacked Rand with a bayonet. Rand beat him speedy, however whilst Shannon pulled a gun Rand took it and ran. He dodged bullets, jumped over a wall, and were given away. One guy chased him, however Rand knocked him out and ditched the gun. He combined right into a Chinese New Year parade and used Colleen's cash to shop for a masks. When Shannon's men got here near, Rand slipped through the group and took one of them down. At some point of the chaos he then faced Shannon, who admitted Ward dispatched him. Rand knocked him out and escaped once more. Later Rand discovered Big Al useless from pills in Central Park. He observed a raven tattoo on his arm and found out something became off. Wanting solutions, Rand sneaked into Rand Enterprises once more and spoke to Joy. He advised her the constructing felt like domestic. He stated Ward attempted to kill him, however she failed to agree with it. She concept Shannon acted on his very own, however began to question matters while they talked. Rand all of a sudden handed out Joy had drugged his tea. She and Ward had him dispatched to a mental health facility. Rand dreamed approximately the crash and the clergyman Chodak and Tashi who stored him. When he awakened he became tied to a health facility mattress. An orderly named Simon refused to untie him, calling him risky. Rand attempted to give an explanation for himself, however Simon advised him he needed to kill himself to get assist before matters were given worse. Personnel pulled Simon away, leaving Rand drugged and subconscious once more. Later Rand reflected and attempted to recognition on his recollections of Kunlun, however the crash kept bothering him. Dr. Paul Edmonds sat with him. Rand requested to be untied and promised to live calm. Edmonds loosened one strap, however nevertheless wasn't certain Rand became who he claimed to be. Rand defined once more how Shaq and Tashi determined him after the crash and the way he survived. Edmund confirmed Rand a passport together along with his pictograph, however the call became John Anderson. Rand denied understanding it, even though he had stolen it from Morocco. Edmonds advised him to be sincere if he desired to depart the health facility before leaving him limited. After being freed, Rand became given excursion through Simon, who apologized for his in advance moves. Simon shared testimonies approximately the sufferers, which includes Dink and Leo. Rand stayed decided to depart in 72 hours, however Simon warned him maximum sufferers have been there for years in the amusement room. Simon noted that he and others had stayed longer than anticipated. After Simon made a remark approximately the sufferers Dink were given disillusioned and Rand ended up in a fight. Rand without difficulty overpowered Dink, which brought about guards taking him away. Rand became strapped down and drugged once more. Simon visited and requested if he had any own circle of relatives or buddies. Rand requested Simon to assist him, named Colleen Wing, on the Chakra dojo. After explaining his scenario, Colleen refused to assist, unwilling to hazard her lifestyles for him. Back in his room, Rand reflected, remembering his time in Loon and the information of his aircraft crash. Paul Edmonds visited once more, asking approximately the medicine Rand became taking. Rand admitted to mendacity approximately the passport, however insisted he became Danny Rand, now no longer John Anderson. Edmonds failed to trust him and left. Joe then got here in to provide Rand his medicine, which he took willingly. Later Edmund confirmed Rand an antique Rand Enterprises business, which Rand at once identified from his early life. Edmund counseled that Rand fantasized approximately being a part of a rich-owned circle of relatives, however Rand frivolously defined the business's backstory. When Edmonds insisted Rand became John Anderson, Rand smashed the PC display screen and yelled that he became Danny Rand. Staff contributors arrived, sedated him and dragged him again to his room. That nighttime Rand became strapped down and drugged once more. As he attempted to sleep, he hallucinated Harold Meacham, who reminded Rand how he used to bother him through singing Danny Boy. Confused, Rand defined his time with the Order of the Crane Mother and the way he regretted leaving Kowloon, For New York Mesham wondered Rand approximately Kuhn with inside the Iron Fist displaying hobby with inside a hand. Rand begged to be free of the sanatorium and Meacham promised to assist. The subsequent day Rand struggled to meditate, haunted through recollections of the crash. Joe introduced a package deal from Joy. Meacham inside turned into a bag of M&Ms. Rand picked out the brown ones which had been private information that would show his identification later. Colleen Wing visited, wondering why Ward Mesham had categorized Rand risky on the Shakura dojo. Rand defined to Wing that the Meachams noticed him as a hazard to their manipulative Rand Enterprises. However, Wing laughed, announcing the scenario turned into in no way easy. She requested if Rand turned into risky and he confident her he handiest posed a hazard to the Meshams. He requested her to go back the package deal to Joy as Rand's 72-hour live at Burr Psychiatric Hospital ended. Paul Edmonds visited and requested questions. Handiest Danny. Rand might realize after Rand spoke back Edmonds appeared to agree with him, however turned into nonetheless greatly surprised through the tale. Rand excitedly shared information about Kunlun and the Iron Fist, explaining it turned into some other measurement and that he turned into both Danny Rand and the Iron Fist. Edmonds but believed Rand turned into laid low with a psychotic ailment as a result of the trauma of the aircraft crash. He disregarded the Iron Fist as a coping mechanism and insisted Rand live in remedy for his protection. That nighttime Joe moved Rand to a brand new room wherein Dinkleo Antony attacked him beneath Neth Ward Mesham's orders. The ache helped Rand attention his chai and he summoned the Iron Fist to interrupt. Unfastened after knocking out his attackers, he waited for Joe, then used the Iron Fist to spoil the sanatorium's metallic door and break out. Rand turned into geared up to confront the Meshams and take again Rand Enterprises. After escaping Birch Psychiatric Hospital, Rand concealed at Chikara Dojo. He noticed Colleen Wing fend off Shannon and his guys who had been looking for him. Rand concealed at the ceiling whilst Wing fought them off. Once they left, Rand apologized for the hassle, mentioning Shannon had damaged the door lock. Wing informed him to go through mourning. The subsequent day Rand stayed gambling loud tune whilst meditating. Daryl watched as Wing informed him to turn it off. She requested why he hadn't left and Rand stated he turned into involved for her. Wing insisted she did not want protection, prompting Rand to criticize her preventing fashion. Wing attempted to punch him in frustration, however he without difficulty dodged. They sparred in brief whilst Daryl watched and Rand lectured Wing on specializing in inner pressure. Wing neglected him and did not land successful. Rand defeated Wing of their spar, explaining how harnessing her chai might enhance her preventing. Wing insisted he go away, however Rand presented 6 months lease for a week's live.